one of the most dangerous and feared cyber attacks. If you look at cyber attacks, and if you are to just select one of them and say this is by far the most dangerous that could take down the world, it is this one: supply chain cyber attack. Now, starting with the topic for the people who don't know me, and now that you can't see me on the camera due to the small error, my name is Andrei. I am a cybersecurity architect and a technical product marketing manager. Been with Heimdal and in cybersecurity for almost 7 years now, and I had the honor of doing more than 1,000 cybersecurity implementations. So I kind of seen it all so far. That's why I'm here speaking to you guys right now. Today's plan is to talk about what is a supply chain cyber attack and why is this the most dangerous one. Looking at some case studies on the most famous ones, like the SolarWinds Orion RMM, the Kaseya VSA, and the MOVEit. Then we're going to look at the practical strategy that would literally render them powerless. And I know that this is a bold statement, but you need to take my promise for it for now, and we will see it in action together. And then I will do a demo of this particular strategy. So we won't talk only from a theoretical angle, we will actually show it live so that people see how easy it is to do it, actually how simple it is to do it. When it comes to easy, you might need to invest some time to push out this type of configuration, but it is not complicated at all. Now, let's actually start with a quick trivia game in which I put a question, you guys answer. The people that are closest to the answer will receive a Heimdal Home Premium license as a gift from me. So the question goes like this: why do people fear this form of cyber attack the most? Out of all of them, why is this one the most feared? Let's see. Lee is saying this is out of control. Jarvis is saying the same. That's perfect. Cora is saying you don't see it until it's too late. Then Kiel is saying you could be attacked through a trusted source. Lewis, you don't know it's coming. And Soren, access to the admin out of control. Exactly. Because this form of attack is always delivered via a platform that you already trust. And since it's a platform that you already trust, even if you have the proper setup in place that will show you that this platform is all of a sudden doing something it shouldn't do, like spawning other software that is out of the ordinary for it, or connecting to other sources on the internet, when it does that, you might actually think in your mind that this is an update in the platform and that they're doing something new. However, if you think about it, it's quite impossible to stay up to date with any change in any new software. It's very difficult, and you also have a lot of other things to do on a daily basis. So you can't afford to stay up to date with every little change every little software is making in the world, and we all know how fast those changes happen. So this is exactly the reason why this is the most feared form of cyber attack, because it is basically having its own right to already be in your environment, and things that are already having that right, sometimes they might be excluded from antivirus scans, they might be excluded for traffic scans, and so on and so forth. Now, moving forward, in order for us to start defining how do we do the end, and let me put a pointer over here, how do we achieve the end of cybersecurity attack chain, supply attack? Now, in order for us to establish the end of it, let's see what is the start of it. Basically, this is a cyber attack that targets an organization by compromising a less secured element within its supply chain. Okay? Now, that means that it can have a few forms that we can be discussing over here. So, the first form is the most basic. There is a target organization. Okay? This is step one. Step two, the attacker is scouting and researching how to hack into this organization because this is their main interest. Now, after that, when they notice that this organization, due to whatever reasons, maybe they have a good CISO, maybe they are very heavily checked for compliance, this organization has a very, very good cybersecurity posture. It's very difficult to get in, okay? So what do they do afterwards? Basically, they start identifying vendors and suppliers of this organization. Now, when they do that, what they do is they go behind the scenes and start checking if they can hack into any of the other third parties. That's why the third party assessment, the third party vendor assessment questionnaires have become crazy in the last years. There are very few organizations that work with another organization without properly checking how often do they update their cybersecurity response plan, what security do they have in place, and so on and so forth, which is very important to do. So in the last few years, this escalated to a very, very complex process. Now, let's say the attacker checked the first vendor and sees they would spend too much resources to get in. What do they do then? They move to another third party contractor or supplier. They check this one too. If they can hack here, they will do their best, but they do not want to expose themselves yet. So what they do is they go to the next one. And let's say that in this particular case, they manage to infect this particular organization. The next purpose is not to attack this one. What they actually want to do is make sure they compromise the target organization. They are very, very strategic when it comes to how they operate. Now, this is the classical example. This is a very targeted example in which I want to attack company A, and I will do anything that stands in my power to attack company A, meaning I will start researching, I will find that weak link within their supply chain, and I will attack that just for me to pivot to the main organization. I will not show my cards in the first attack. Now, this is one version of it. However, if we all think about it, this is not the one that we are fearing the most, right? The one that we're fearing the most is when an attacker wants to actually access in one go a multitude of downstream organizations. This is what we should all be fearing, or not fearing. Let's not say fearing because that's such impactful, right? This is what we should be aware of, and we should prepare ourselves versus. So how does this attacker get to all of these downstream organizations in a very, very effective way? Let's see, people in the chat, help me out here. Just to know that you guys are still listening to me and that I'm still audible in the session. Let's see. We have very good people here. Harald is raising his hand. Harald, just go to the questions box and let us know your opinion there. Jarvis is saying they will attack a mutual weak point. Thank you, Jarvis. And that's pretty much it. But Harald, I still want you to find the questions box because I want you to be involved in the session with us. Okay, so until Harald finds the questions box, let's actually see. What do they do? So they will identify a golden ticket vendor. This is how I call them, which could be a managed service provider, right? Because a managed service provider, you have your tools and your channels open to all your customers. They will attack a remote management tool like the Kaseya or like the Kaseya VSA, the Orion tool, the MOVEit, the ones that we will be discussing today, right? So the cybersecurity supply chain attacks that make the news are not the ones that you saw in the first example, when somebody very targeted is going to attack one specific company. What makes the news are these ones, because these ones will literally shake our foundation. And we all remember what happened with all of these massive attacks. Now, let's actually see a situation over here. So let's say the attacker has infected the vendor, right? But then you might see that the attempts to infect go to all the customers or the downstream organizations that they can. However, you will notice that a few of them get infected like these, a few of them do not get infected. Can you help me out? And let's do a collective exercise here. Can you tell me what would be some main differences between these orgs, the ones flagged with red that got infected and the ones flagged with green that managed to stand strong and not be infected? Can you let me know what's your opinion? Lee is spot on. Kel is also pushing a funny one. Yeah, it's Kel is saying that they are protected by Heimdal. Yeah, I would say they have many layers of protection, as Martin says. Exactly. And Cora says the green ones are using zero trust. Very important. Gyula is saying different endpoint security solutions. And Martin is again saying, thank you, Martin. That's a good one. They have more active monitoring. Okay. So let's actually park this one for now. And Soren, again, zero trust, very important. And this is the next level of zero trust that we will be discussing today. And Lee was right when she said the term fencing. But let's keep this one for the conclusion, the practical tactic and strategy that you can deploy today to make sure these will not impact you as they did the rest of the world. But let's park this one for now and let's look into these most famous supply chain attacks, right? Let's start with one of the recent famous ones, which is the MOVEit bridge, right? So this is one of the most famous recent ones. It happened and let's start analyzing it. So based on the data available, this breach was detected in May 2023. So what happened over here as a case study? It first started when the Club ransomware group began exploiting a zero-day vulnerability, very important guys, in the MOVEit transfer software, right? It's a file transfer software for companies, okay? This particular vulnerability enabled them to be able to do SQL injection, and that allowed the attackers to take away very sensitive data from the compromised server. Now, after that, in late May, after a few days after they noticed this particular opportunity for them and what we call a vulnerability, they started to simply test on a very small scale to make sure that whenever they deploy the full scale one, everything will go as they plan. So you can see how thoughtful they are in the process and how detailed they are in the process. Nothing is, let's go in, let's throw this to the wall and see if it sticks. No, they actually test it properly before they do the throwing it to the wall part. Now, in early June, attackers moved very fast to start stealing data, encrypting critical systems, and also contacting all these victims with the ransomware demands. Now, what happened after that? is that the parent company of MOVEit, which is called Progress Software, publicly disclosed the vulnerability and issued patches encouraging customers to update immediately. But this immediately, as everybody well said in the chat earlier, in the question space earlier, this immediately is already too late. And in the case of MOVEit, the customers that were impacted by this mass ransomware distribution through their application, some of them managed to avoid it by having a multi-layer approach, deploying zero trust, and so on and so forth. Some of them did not, and they became a collective victim, one of the part of the collective of victims towards this particular cyber attack. Now, they started to reveal online to create pressure. So they started to publicly name the victims in order to make sure that the ransom is being paid. And in 2024, up until even the end of the year, which is a bit tragic, many organizations were still dealing with the fallout, lawsuits, compliance investigation, damage in business. So this happened in the middle of 2023, but the waves of this were still being felt in the end of 2024. That is again one of the reasons we wanted to do this particular session. Again, we said let's start the year with the biggest and baddest potential cyber attack that can be. Now, if we move and look at some other data about this attack, I wanted to make sure I let you guys know how did this happen in the first place, right? So the attackers used a very sophisticated SQL injection attack by leveraging that particular vulnerability and managed to get access into the database. Now, this was the first step, and this was not the end-all be-all, because if they manage to access the database and the database is so well crafted and designed, then it's not as easy to push forward. But what they found there is that there was a poor input validation setup in the actual MOVEit software. This is a very, very common vulnerability in all the web applications. So I see distributors here, I see resellers, and I see customers. If you guys run with web applications for the services you offer, or if your customers, the ones that you're protecting, run web applications, make sure you advise them to put proper security and to make a proper design, because this right here, it's a very common error in doing a proper security by design configuration. So let's move forward and see what was the impact. Directly impacted about 2.5K organizations globally. This had major enterprises that were using the software. This had government agencies and also healthcare providers. However, indirectly, it has covered, I believe it was over 2 million data sets from individuals around the world, and this was sensitive data. So the victims, not just the main organizations that were hit, but also the victims were the people that got their data exposed. The direct cost that were involved with this, with ransom payments, response efforts, like legal fees, and so on, were in the range, or actually some people say they were exceeding $100 million. Now, indirect costs, those were, I would say, even a 10x versus this one. Now, the question is today, if we were to deploy the tactic and strategy that we're talking about today, would this attack have been avoided? Could it have been nullified by the strategy? The answer is yes. So that should make you guys want to stick up until the end of the session so that you see the tactic, right? Okay, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, yes, no in the chat. Okay, let's see. Anybody? Yes, Simon, thank you. Simon, you made the session move forward, and Soren the same with his emoji. Now, let's talk about the next one up in the list, which is the Kaseya breach, the virtual system administrator tool. And again, since it was such a hot tool that everybody was using, the attackers said, let's actually focus on this and then let's avoid going one by one. As you can see, they're starting to work very smart when it comes to cyber attacks. So we go back in time 2 years from the MOVEit breach. This is July 2nd, 2021. What happened is in April 2021, so you already see a bit of a discrepancy between July and April, right? You have April, you have May, you have June, and then you have July. So these are 3 months, okay? So security researchers, which are some people that we owe so much to, in my opinion, identified a vulnerability in the VSA software. And be them very responsible and ethic people, they disclosed the vulnerability to the company, saying, hey, Kaseya, your VSA system has a bit of a problem. This is the problem, and this is how it can be used. Now, Kaseya, what they did is they immediately started working on a fix. Further down the line, in June 2021, the Revil group, the ransomware group, discovered and exploited the same vulnerability to prepare their attack. Then in July, and this was the moment where people realized what was happening, attackers used the zero-day vulnerability to bypass the authentication mechanism, then pushed malicious updates via the VSA tool itself to deploy ransomware to managed service providers and their clients. What did I mention at the beginning? Managed service providers, especially the ones that have over 100 customers, not even considering big customers, are one of the golden ticket vendors that attackers are looking for. Now, this particular attack included encrypting the files and leaving the ransom note on the affected systems. Now, on July 6th, which is 4 days after the mass attack, Kaseya released the patch for the exploited vulnerability, providing immediate remediation guidance to affected customers. But ladies, gentlemen, if your customers get into this situation with you, you can provide the world to them. You can bet that they're already considering looking at other similar tools that they can use, and they will ask them questions as to how do they secure themselves, how often do they pen test their tools, and so on and so forth. Now, moving forward down the line, July 13, a universal decryptor was obtained. The speculations within the industry is that this would be either the efforts of law enforcement or payments to the actual ransomware group. Now, in my opinion, and you will see this at the damages, this has a very interesting connection with after July, the Revil's infrastructure mysteriously disappeared. They stopped their operations. So, what some people say, and I actually had this conversation with a few of the people in the webinar back in the day when we initially had this breach as an active factor. What some people said is that they got their payout and they simply decided to change their brand so that the heat that was generated by this massive attack does not weigh down on them, right? So they're very smart. How did they get hacked? The company itself. So they actually saw a chain of vulnerabilities within the VSA software, including an authentication bypass. This particular authentication bypass to the actual builder of the app itself allowed them to gain full control over the system and push ransomware. So basically, they took that trusted tool that Kaseya was providing to so many people and transformed it into a vector for mass disaster, right? So this particular one was literally disguised as the update of the software itself. Your antivirus, if you had any challenges with it in the past, and I'm talking about the most basic defense system, the antivirus. If you had challenges with an app in the past, what did you do? You put it in the antivirus excluded list, right? That's what most of the people do. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people were infected with this particular ransomware attempt. Now, as impact, it directly impacted 1,500 businesses. However, indirectly, it went, I believe, even more than 2 million endpoints globally due to the cascading MSP client relationship, which is very, very powerful. Now, Revil, they have asked for what was then a record-breaking ransom demand for a universal decryptor. So this is exactly where people started to speculate, because after they asked for this one, at the point the universal decryptor appeared on the market. So it might be that even maybe Kaseya paid this ransom just to get the universal decryptor. We don't know. So we're just speculating over here, guys. Don't hold me accountable to this one. Now, the total fallout, including recovery, downtime, everything, exceeded 1 billion US dollars, which is huge, right? Imagine how much good this particular amount of money could do in the world, but it was spent on this. Now, quick question for the audience, testing if you guys are still here with me. Do you think that the strategy slash tactic that we will showcase today would stop this particular attempt of cyber attack? Let's see. Opinions. I know you don't know the strategy. You might have heard some words over there. Harald is saying, yes, I hope so. Very good, Harald. Anybody else? Kiel is saying, I hope so. And Gyula is saying, yes, it will. And we have Soren saying yes. Okay. So guys, yes, deploying the strategy that I will show to you today, not just talk about, would definitely stop this. Now, let's talk about the Emperor of Emperors, the Kings of Kings. This is, ladies and gentlemen, the cybersecurity supply chain attack that literally put these types of attacks on the map. This is the moment where everything in cybersecurity pivoted, and this is the triggering factor for why we are filling in so many third-party vendor security questionnaires today. If this wouldn't have happened, then things would have been totally different. So let's talk about the Orion IT management software. This particular attack was detected in December 2020. However, the timeline of this attack, and ladies and gentlemen, this is where it gets fun. The timeline sounds like this. In September 2019, the attackers, which is believed to be APT29, gained initial access to the development environment of SolarWinds by compromising its software build system. This is again very familiar with one of the previous, right? Then in October, they tested the insertion of harmless code into SolarWinds Orion's update to test if the deployment mechanisms will trigger any type of alert within their environment or within the environment of the customers. So they did a very simple thing. They said to this particular piece of code, give us back the details of the computer, such as location and hardware type or something like that. Something very basic, right? A basic query. But guess what? It was not detected, because you would expect Orion, which is an IT management software, to ask such information to your computer, right? And everybody said this is something totally normal. We don't need to worry about it. But guess what? In February, the attackers began inserting the Sunburst malware into Orion software update. And this is not where it ends. In March, the first malicious update was fully deployed and distributed across the globe to so many customers that were purchasing this highly revered product. Then in June, only in June, the malicious update was downloaded by approximately 18,000 customers. And this is where everything started to shift. Now, from June to December, they were very silent about what they were doing. They found a gold mine and nobody was detecting them up until the security company called FireEye discovered this particular breach because they were also breached. They were a user of this particular software. And that is the moment when it led to public disclosure. So it started in September 2009 and it was fully detected in December 2020. Imagine the fun that these particular attackers had, knowing that nobody has detected what they did up until December 2020. This is why we need to be very clever when it comes to these particular attacks. And that's one of the reasons we're having this particular discussion today, guys. So, how were they attacked? Well, you will again start laughing because the attacker exploited weak security practices. And we're not talking about an entry-level company. We're talking about one of the heavyweights. And they manage to find the password for the SolarWinds update server, which was SolarWinds 123. Guys, any password sprayer, the first thing it will try is to try to leverage names or combination of the words or deviations of the actual word of the company, the name of the company, admin 123, SolarWinds 123. It would be funny for Heimdal to have Heimdal 123 on their servers as a password, right? But come on, the basic practice should not allow you to do that. Then, and again, I will give it to these attackers. I'm not a fan of what they did, but I would give it to these attackers. After that, they used very advanced infiltration techniques. They were very smart at what they were doing. Then the impact. 18,000 organizations worldwide downloaded. 100 organizations, including Microsoft, Cisco, US federal agencies, and there were so many agencies impacted by this, significantly breached. There were emails going from agency servers from the US to voters in the campaign. And guys, let's look at the dates over there. It was a very interesting campaign in the US over there, but I won't go into politics, who exactly got named as the president in that time, right? They have leveraged the infrastructure of the voting federation, or I don't know how that agency is called, with the voters. And they were sending emails on behalf of their servers from their servers. Estimated cost in direct costs were 90 million plus. I believe it was so much more. But it had geopolitical concerns, and also the impact it had on cybersecurity is incalculable. You cannot do that because today we're doing the questionnaires. We're so stressed in making sure each of our collaborator does their good job, and all of this came from this particular thing. And if you think about it, if we all do the proper due diligence from the get-go, this might have not happened. SolarWinds 123. And this is what I'm talking about over here. As Simon says, crazy. Exactly. Now, could it have been nullified by the strategy we're going to discuss today? Oh, yes, it could. Oh, yes. So let's not beat around the bush. Let me ask you a simple trivia question, because I know people want to win the license. What is the most recent, and I'm talking a few days ago, cybersecurity supply chain attack reported? Let's see. Who's the fastest Googler, or who watches bleeping computers news and the dark reading news? Not Microsoft recently reported. I would be very scared if that happened. Martin, share the article you found where you found Microsoft with me. It's basically reported in the news yesterday. Let's see. Can you guys find it? You can search reported on 22nd of January. WordPress, not WordPress, but thank you, Dom. Fortinet, not Fortinet. It's very similar, Yula. It's very similar. If nobody guesses, anybody that responded to the question right now will get the license. HP, Cisco, no. Cisco, no. And Lewis is the winner. Thank you, Lewis. And Gyula as well. A VPN service solution. Exactly. It is called iPaddy VPN, and it's a Korean VPN solution. The attack has made the news yesterday on January, again, 22nd. But it was hacked since May 2024. Guys, do you notice the similarity in this? So they spent half a year being in the actual system of the provider. Imagine how much data they have noticed, seen, and then maybe sold on the internet. Exactly, Chorus. So long time. It's impossible. And considering SolarWinds, considering Kaseya, considering MOVEit, I would guess that people got the signal and they started to do proper security. But guess what? It seems that some other things that you trust on a daily basis to secure yourself, like a VPN, and it's actually a very famous VPN in Korea, are still not pulling through. Maybe in the future we will do a case study on this one as well, but it's just reported right now, so it will take up until a year to finally establish the damages, how it happened, so on and so forth. But now let's talk solutions, okay? Until this moment, we have just did a massive awareness exercise on why are these the king and queen of cyber attacks. Why should we actually do the due diligence and make sure our suppliers do the forms with us and everything like that. But still, even if we do all of that, we still need a proper multi-layer approach to our security. But now I want to show you the exact layer that would stop this. So this is the victim's organization, right? Let's consider this as it. Then vendor's compromised update comes into the organization, and in this moment in time, you trust the vendor's solutions. So you can't actually do too much on this particular compromised update because the attackers are not naive. They will not bring in all their guns and all their armies in this particular update, because then your systems will start looking like a Christmas tree all of a sudden. So they are smart, they won't do that. But what happens here? The vendor compromised update comes in. Then you actually have their compromised app that has been updated on your computer. If the app doesn't change anything, nothing different. However, it will try to do two things, and usually they are done in this particular order. The first thing is they will try to contact the attacker's command and control server. This is the first thing they do. And the second thing that might happen from the trusted compromised app or directly after the command and control as a response is they will try to bring in additional components. And this is where they start slowly bringing in their forces, so to say. Now, if we look at this particular matrix, so far, the security practices that you would do is to make sure command and control communications are being detected, and then the zero trust that everybody mentioned. and thank you guys for mentioning zero trust, the zero trust that everybody mentioned would actually not allow them to bring additional components unless the components are already trusted, like standard admin tools, like, I don't know, a advanced IP scanner on the network, and so on and so forth. So this is the way we were doing the security for these types of attacks. However, can you notice something over here, that if we break that particular communication line, everything stops? Let's see. Can you notice where exactly, if we put a wall, it will stop everything? Okay, Soren, Martin, thank you. Kel, thank you. Breaking the compromised trust, exactly, Andrew. So the block needs to be here, because I would give it to you, who said that? Soren, before the app over here. But then if it is before the app, you basically will need to scan all the updates that come from the vendor separately and then update them. So this is a problem if it's one of these vendors that we have been discussing. If it's a very simple vendor like Google Chrome or that's not a problem. The Heimdal patching already tests the compromised updates, and if it's compromised and we found a few in history, we send the notice, an urgent notice, back to the vendor that they have been compromised, and we actually, I believe, caught 2 or 3 so far, if I'm not mistaken. But let's say this is a licensed software. You won't get the update through Heimdal if it's a licensed software. You get it directly from them. And then you need to make sure that you put a wall to whatever they want to connect online, and you put another wall to whatever they want to further deploy. So taking an example over here, let me actually make sure I share with you guys the Heimdal portal right now. Can you see the Heimdal portal? Don't trust the app. Harald, you're great. I like you so much. Never trust the app. Zero trust is the way to move forward in the future. Okay, so you see the Heimdal dashboard. Let's also open AnyDesk for a second. Oh, not this one. Okay, AnyDesk. This one. Okay. Okay, and let's access this particular VM. Okay, so now you see my lovely server administrator looking at his server and being a good philosopher. Now, let's see. If I am to open a browser, let's open Edge and go to cnn.com. I am entering cnn.com. Okay, all good so far, nothing changed, nothing differently. So now my users can take this browser and go anywhere they want in the world. Okay, cool. That makes total sense. But then let's say I open Firefox. And now I want to go in the Firefox and I want to open cnn.com. It is blocked. But why would it be? It's the same browser. It's a browser like the other one. The difference here is that this browser, consider this your MOVEit, your VSA, or your Orion. This particular browser has been limited to only connect to the local host. I can connect to the local host. If I take the local host and move into Edge, I can connect to the local host. If I take Edge and move to, let's do, I don't know, Fox News something.com. Let's see. I can connect to foxnews.com because I'm on Edge. But if I move to Firefox and connect to foxnews.com, I am not allowed to. What's the difference here? The difference is simple. Go to the Heimdal dashboard, Andrei, and show everybody the difference. So going to the Heimdal dashboard, let me show you all the difference. And by the way, Lee, I saw your question. I'll get back to that one immediately. I just want to show you guys how easy it is to set something like this up. So the tool that allows us to do this is a zero trust tool, exactly as everybody said. Thank you. Zero trust. It's called application control. And basically, this little application control tool, which is very powerful, does the following job. It allows only certain applications that you have approved to function. And this is called zero trust mode. And I will show it to you right now, which should show here default file action block all the time. So this is zero trust. And let's say I am in zero trust and I have SolarWinds Orion approved. Would that alone stop the attack? Let's see. Opinions, yes or no? Come on. No, exactly. Why not, guys? Soren, Harald, thank you. Because you already trust SolarWinds Orion. What it would actually stop is not the software itself. It would stop them to deploy additional components, because then they bring the components and they try to execute them, and that will be stopped and flagged to you. But they still can connect to the command and control. That means they will start researching your company, seeing your weak points in your IT, and doing anything they want in order to make sure that they will disable your security and still attack you. So that is very important. Now, Julia is saying maybe if we disable the spawning, we would disable the spawning, but imagine our RMM software that is meant to spawn things, right? So we can't just disable the entire spawning, because then we paid for a software that is not doing the job that we needed to do. So what do? Because we're smart people, is we create the rules, we apply zero trust to be safe, but then there's this beautiful feature that has been released called fencing. The Heimdal terminology for it is AppFencing. And this is what it does. So Mozilla Firefox, the software that I have used and showed you earlier, right, has the following fencing rules. It will block all the traffic in the world aside of this particular IP on this particular port. So that means that if this was not Firefox and it was Orion or MOVEit or VSA from Kaseya, they will have their IPs listed here where the tools need to connect, and only that, and all the other traffic on blocked all the time. And then whenever the attackers were attempting to take the Kaseya platform or the Orion platform or the MOVEit IT platform and connect to their command and control to deliver the ransomware or deliver the heavy blow to you, they would not be able to. And you would be one of the few customers that still is operational and not impacted by the mass cybersecurity supply chain attack. So this is it, ladies and gentlemen. It's quite a useful technology, and I really hope that everyone will take a trial, use it. Most of you guys already have app control from Heimdal, so yeah, just in the last few minutes before we get to a bit of a Q&A, this little application, which is very powerful, and I would urge everybody to use it in zero trust mode, even if it takes a bit of time to determine what is accepted and what not in your environment, is a part of a big platform, which is a fully modular platform that comes from Heimdal. Heimdal is a cybersecurity vendor standing from Denmark that has the widest XDR tool stack in the market, combining reactive and proactive security together, actually starting with proactive because then the reactive job is not as big, right? Now, this particular platform is trusted by so many people around the world. We protect over 16,000 organizations. I believe we're running on, let's say, 2,000 MSPs right now. And we have super good feedback from our users, as you can see in the peer review section over here. And under all of these products, the one that we talked about today is this one, application control. And only with one layer, you can already deploy such a powerful security. Imagine what you can do when you combine all of them. And some people within the session know what you can do because they're actually using it. Now, in order to close down, if anyone wants a demo of this particular tool and how it works, maybe you didn't have time to contact your account manager so far, or maybe you don't know about this one so far, right? So you, in the webinar survey, you have an option to ask for a product demo, and one of our engineers will show you exactly. And there's also a free proof of concept, so you don't need to take anything that you don't need or that you don't test out. Now, going to questions, I see Chris over here. Good. Chris is asking, consider M365 email though. You can go to outlook.office.com or whatever. Microsoft adds and removes IP addresses on a pretty frequent basis, but you're requiring IP addresses to be listed in your protection scheme. How can this be managed effectively? Perhaps I've misunderstood. Chris, no, you did not misunderstand. You're spot on. And I love your comment. Whenever Microsoft changes those IPs, they are always a part of a of a list of IPs, a range of IPs. I don't think they will always change to random IPs across the world. You can directly list all the IPs out of that range, and whenever they switch in that range, be them their IPs, they will still be covered. And Martin is asking, do you offer any documentation that offer guidance on how to implement AppFencing? I believe so, Martin, and everybody else, if we're talking Heimdal specifically right now, on the Heimdal support page, you have every little button explained. If you ever feel yourself in doubt of something, copy paste it from the portal or from the agent, go to Heimdal support on the page directly, and type it in the middle search box, and you will get all the articles in front of you that mention that word. And as a responsibility, our support team always documents everything each button does and how to use it. So I would go there, Martin, and if that doesn't help you, just connect with your account manager, and they will definitely be able to help you. By the way, just a small parenthesis over here with the VPN question, the one that was compromised yesterday. Everybody that answered will get the prize, but I am very happy that somebody actually answered it correctly. Yeah, and it might be me that maybe other 5 companies were attacked and disclosed yesterday, and I didn't see those. I just saw the iPani VPN. Okay, ladies, gentlemen, let's see. Any final round of questions that you might have for me? And it can be regarding this, it can be regarding anything else cybersecurity related. Okay. Martin, thank you. Soren, thank you as well. Dom, thank you. Okay, Simon, not at the moment. So with that being said, ladies, gentlemen, I wish you a fantastic day, a fabulous year, and do not become victims to cybersecurity supply chain attacks. And Kel is asking, can you please show again where to find the fencing? Okay, cool. Kel, just remain for a second with me over here, just to be safe that that you see where to find the app fencing. So I'll take it from the top. And by the way, everybody else that needs to go, thank you for joining. I know that time is precious, and I am very happy that you spent it with me over here. And Julia, we will have a virtual beer. Thank you. Okay, back to Kel to make sure that you know where to find the app fencing. So we're on the main page. Let's go on the main page and make sure you see everything end to end. So first of all, let's take away the banner promoting our webinar today. Endpoint settings, this is the first place. Then you open any of your MS Windows policies. I'll open this one. You're gonna give it a second to load. Then you go to the product category, privileges and delegation management, app control over here, privileges and app control. And now you switch to app control. The first thing you need to do is have app control on. Then, no matter how you do it, if you allow everything or deny everything, you will simply create a rule over here, which can be a blocking rule, which will block the entire application, so no need of fencing anymore. But in its full effect, you would use this in block mode. You will have your list of authorized software, and then to each of your authorized software, you would simply tick on app fencing like this, like PowerShell, for example. You would edit, and now you have the two sections, network and internet access. And the default is coming to allow it to connect to anything on the network types like this. But you can switch this to on, which means any attempt of traffic that is not listed by you in this list will be blocked from now on. So now you go to the vendor and say, hey, Mr. Vendor, which they should actually have that information public. What are all the IPs and what are the ports that I need to allow for your application to function? And if I go to the Heimdal support page, you will find all of that. It should be in every every company's guide on how to set it up all the time. Then you would add your remote IP and the port, and that's simply it. Nothing more, nothing less. And you add them here. But then you can also do application interactions. So over here by default, it allows spawning of everything, but then you put this on and then it blocks all the spawning unless you specify a software name, a software path, an MD5, a publisher, signature, wildcard, depending on your appetite of security. Some of them are more flexible, some of them are more aggressive. Now, Kel, let me know if you captured the entire process. Okay, and I see a lot of people still here with us. So if anybody else has any questions, I'm not going anywhere. So let me know. Let's give a final round. Any other questions? Put them in the chat right now. Okay, actually, a lot of people wanted to see what you asked for, Kel. That's perfect. Simon wanted to see it as well, and Simon captured it too. Okay, then I don't see any other questions. With that being said, I wish everyone a fantastic year ahead, and please make sure to deploy these simple yet super effective steps to not become a victim of whatever mass cybersecurity supply chain attacks happen in the future. Wish you all a fantastic and a fabulous day. Goodbye.